Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Raising the Curtain, a Bloomington Normal Theater podcast with Ashleigh Raylan. Today, I am here with Sage Brown, who is an actor for Heartland Theatre Company's upcoming production of The Lion in Winter. How are you today, Sage?
Hi there. I'm great. How are you?
Oh, I'm peachy. I am going to go ahead and apologize to the listeners. I am on the tail end of a gnarly head cold, so I might sound a little funky, but that's all right. We're going to roll with it. So, Sage, why
Sure.
don't we just start off? Why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got involved with theater?
Yeah, of course. So I am a Bloomington normal native. Been here all my life. And then I started theater probably, I think I was about like 9 or 10. It was just like a fifth grade kind of musical deal over at like Fairview Elementary. And I actually wasn't interested at all. It was more of a competitive thing. I just wanted to beat one of the kids that I didn't like when I was 9 years old.
Oh,
And
fair.
it turned into something. Yeah, it just turned in and blossomed into something that I just am absolutely in love with, and I want to pursue further. Um, I since then, when I was younger, I did Seussical like 3 times because what kid doesn't do Seussical?
Right.
Um, and then did the junior high shows, high school shows, community theater, and then even this summer worked at the Illinois Shakespeare Festival.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you were in Shakes Fest this past year.
Yeah, yeah.
Very cool. So, how did you find your way over to Heartland?
So I more look for scripts that I'm interested in. So I was more interested in the Lion in Winter script. I just got done doing the Shakespeare Festival, and a lot of it has to do with old-timey settings, stuff like that.
Mhm.
So it appealed to me right away, and just the idea of honestly, the idea of this happening and them deciding who's going to be in the script, who's going to be king later on in England, and then it happening right around the election time seemed very appealing to me. Um,
Valid.
Seemed very topical.
Very valid. Who do you play in the show?
I'm playing Richard, the oldest of Henry's children, who wants to be king, along with all of his other children.
Of course. So I should have asked you this question first, but can you tell us a little bit about A Lion in Winter? The Lion in Winter? I keep saying the wrong article at the
No,
beginning.
you are totally fine. The Lion in Winter, a brief summary would be it's all about Henry II, and he is attempting to choose an heir out of his 3 sons. His 3 sons include Richard, Geoffrey, and John. The only problem is he would like the youngest of the three to be king, John, and his wife, who has been locked up and gets to be let out for Christmas and wants to have her say in the matter. And she would like Richard to be king in the show. So essentially, it's just a whole bunch of mind games between a family that the audience can decide if they really like each other or not, but I don't think they even know.
Oh,
It's really a tactical show.
good deal. So would you categorize it as a comedy?
There's definitely comedy in there. I
Okay.
think there's surprisingly more comedy than you'd expect.
Okay. Perfect. I would say I am not super familiar with the show, but I know a lot of people were really excited when Heartland announced they were doing it. Can you kind of explain what the
Mhm.
audition process for this show was like?
So the audition process, we all came and there were that were already printed off, so you didn't have to show up with a monologue prepared or anything like that. And there was a whole bunch of pairings. So the scenes you have to choose from are so many. Scenes just included 2 people, and they would just see how those 2 people would interact. A lot of it would be Henry and Eleanor's, so the king and queen. A lot of it would be the very interesting dynamic between Eleanor and her son Richard, who have a very hot and cold relationship. Jeffrey and John had a lot of scenes together in the audition process, and just seeing how those people react, picking up and matching those up, and finding out the chemistry between actors is mostly how that audition process went, at least from my point of view.
Awesome. Is this the first time you've done something over at Heartland Theater?
It is, yeah. I've never auditioned before. I've kind of done most of the other theaters around town.
Mhm.
I've done stuff at CPT. I've worked with Nomad. I worked with Nomad while I was in the show, actually. And yeah, I'm just marking them all off the list.
Yeah, there's a lot of them, so just keep checking them off. Um,
There is, there is.
so excuse me. So how has working in Heartland space being a much more intimate setting compared to CPT's proscenium theater, compared to Nomad site specific, compared to coming from an outdoor theater in the middle of August? How has that compared for you this time around?
Yeah, it's definitely a new experience. I've worked in the thrust before. Even earlier this year, I did a production called Space Girl at ISU's Westoff Theater. Um, and even then, that space holds a lot more seats, and it's a lot bigger. You have a lot more room. Right here, every little interaction is caught.
Mhm.
And I think that's the beauty of that theater because you don't need to be super big. You don't need to be super loud for every little part of emotion to seep out into the audience. Um, and I personally love it. I think a lot of actors would see it as a challenge, especially me.
Sure.
But it's a challenge that all the cast is embracing, and I think we're thriving in it. And it's super exciting, not only for us but for the audience. The audience doesn't really get that perspective very often.
That is absolutely true. And I know shows are always made easier when you have a good director. And I know your director is John Poling, who is a very well-known name in the theater community, who is
Mhm.
definitely not new to directing or Heartland space. What has your experience been like working with John? We're going to put him on blast right now.
No, we love John Pulling over here. John Pulling, I've had the pleasure of working with him before, actually, at CPT. I did cabaret with him, and we had a lovely
Right,
time
we
with
were
that
in that
show.
together.
We were.
I forgot about that. Continue. I'm so sorry. I was like, when?
It was a while ago. It was a while ago. But I've gotten to work with him as a director, and I've gotten to work with him as an actor. We were both actors in Peter and the Starcatcher. And then this time around, the experience has been pleasant as always. He does put a lot of the responsibility in the actor's hands. He gives us a lot of free choice, I guess, in a lot of the acting matters. Until something comes up and he's like, I did have a vision for this specific thing. But a lot of it, he works with us very well, and letting us making those choices because obviously the actors we're putting in a lot of work to know our characters as best we can. Um, so those relationships really come in from letting us experiment and his uh his little inputs here and there that really shape up the final product.
Perfect. And that's definitely pivotal in a director is that collaboration between your director and your actor. And, they're not seeing what you see on stage. You're not seeing what they're seeing from the audience. And with a space like Heartland, you really need good collaboration and chemistry with your director and your actor relationship there.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. There's been certain times where we'll he'll shoot us down and he'll be like that's not working. But the thing is he's out in the audience and we're not there right now and it is an intimate space. So he's seen what does work and we're lucky to have him.
Absolutely. I'm about to get real educational, technical here.
Okay.
But I remember a class that I took for my master's program where we talked about, oh, I'm going to blank on who the director is, but using the director as like a mirror sort of analogy where the actor, their job is to reflect back what the actor is doing. And if the message isn't coming through, or if, it's just not doing what the actor thinks it's doing, that's their job as
Mhm.
the director to reflect it back and then work together to make sure it's delivering the performance you both want it to deliver.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very evident in the rehearsal room with John. He wears his heart on his sleeve, so if there's something that isn't reading, he'll let us know. Um,
Yeah.
the
Yeah,
thing is, with that space, everything reads. So is it reading the right
exactly.
way or not?
Exactly. One thing I always tell my actors when, I mean, I don't say it as eloquently as I'm sure John would, but one thing I always tell my actors when I direct a show is, if I hate it, I'll tell you. Like,
Oh yeah.
don't be afraid to try something. If I hate it, I'll tell you.
Oh yeah, and we've tried many things, and the way these characters are built, because it's not exactly historically accurate.
Sure.
A lot of these have like, for example, Richard is an LGBTQ character in this,
Oh, very cool.
and obviously back then it was just speculated upon.
Hmm.
So there's things like that where we have many directions that we could go to. We have many directions, like within just family relationships, within that relationship between Richard and I don't want to spoil it, but
Right.
there's only one person that's not in the family in the show, so you can take your guess as to who Richard has a relationship with.
Come
Um,
see the show. You'll figure it out.
yeah, exactly. I don't want to ruin anything for you. Um, but yeah, the directions that we could go are endless. And I think that we really picked a lot of good decisions to make it all cohesive and work together in the best way possible to give the audience the juiciest content possible, you know?
We love that. We love juicy content.
Yeah.
So, all right, we're gonna get, as much as I hate to say it, we're gonna get a little political right now.
Okay.
So, we are recording this the day after the election results. We're not gonna get into that though. Um, but you had mentioned that you were fascinated by the script about who was going to be king because of how close it was happening to the election, right?
Mhm.
Um, I feel like we in the community have seen kind of a lot of political shows this year. I mean, even all the way back in January, we had, excuse me, we had 12 Angry Jurors at Community Players. Not directly political, but political and legal based, right? Plus, you had
Mhm.
the Outsider over at Wesleyan. You had the polling places with Nomad. Um, you had the minutes at Heartland as well. And one thing that I think the community's done a really good job of is it's providing you the knowledge of an election without being, blatantly in your face, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm not sure if you saw or are familiar with any of those other productions, but how would you say this kind of ties in with this? I don't want to call it a theme because I don't think it was intentional, but it might be. Who knows? How would you
Mhm.
say this show kind of fits in with that same theme of educating the community on politics without shoving it down their throat?
Yeah. So what I would say about this show in particular is there's clear choices that the country in question is going through. That country being 11th 1183 England, you
Mhm.
know. Um and the choices are not thrown in your face by any means, but it's up to the audience really to choose who would be the best king to move forward in this direction. Um, and I believe in this play, everyone is flawed. And I think that's true in real life as well. And
Absolutely.
it's up to the audience to decide who is the right choice to do this. Is it Henry just keeping the throne for as long as he can? Is it him moving on and giving it to Richard, who is a war general, and that is the most likely option for England to grow? Manifest destiny, all that stuff. They
Mhm.
war, you know, or would it be to the youngest, John, who is inexperienced, but it's less political, and it would be in quote unquote easy time for for England, or the middle child, Jeffrey, who no one really knows about. I consider him kind of the third party.
Yeah,
Uh, you know, who
absolutely.
everyone thinks like, hey, if it's not this person, it's not this person, it's got to be me, right? If there's no good options, and I think that that gets brought up a lot in this show. So I don't think it's in your face by any means, but you really do decide who or where do you want this country to go.
Mhm.
And I won't spoil anything. In the real world, after Henry dies, Richard does get to become king for 10 years. He dies in battle, and then after that, John becomes king, and he becomes the worst king of England of all time, and there has not been
Right.
a King John since. Um, but the show doesn't take on so many historical aspects. So it really is up to the audience to decide like who am I rooting for in this, and what does that say about me? Um, Obviously it gets way more complex than this person is
Sure.
good and this person is bad. And that's how it is in real life.
Yeah.
As we're all learning about a lot of people, about a lot of candidates, not just presidential candidates, but you're learning so much, especially today. And in the upcoming days, you're going to learn a lot. And I think just who you are as a person, as an audience member, watching this play, it's going to be different for everybody.
That
I don't
fant-
think the same
yeah.
message is going to be sent out. Yeah.
No, and I think that's fantastic. And I don't, I mean, sometimes, yes, there's shows that are delivering a blatant message, but I really love these ones that kind of give you almost an ambiguous ending of
Mhm.
how am I looking at the world around me? Um, and honestly, I mean, I'll say this till I'm blue in the face. I've always believed theater is a platform of education, is a platform of letting people have free thinking, whether it's in line with my views or not. Everyone's
Absolutely
entitled to their
agreed.
opinion, and they have the right to educate themselves and believe what they want to believe. Um,
Absolutely.
so I think it's great that you mentioned that. How big is this cast?
This cast is only seven people. Seven? Yes, seven people. It's the main family. So Henry, Eleanor, Richard, John, and Geoffrey, and then the French King Philip and his sister, who is the mistress of Henry, Elise.
Okay, perfect. And do you think this show has a target audience?
I guess I haven't really thought about it because I feel like this
Oh,
show,
gotcha.
yeah, no, this show really, you think of old-timey shows like this. It was written in the 60s. It takes place in the 1100s. And you would think it would be like a targeted audience towards these classical type theater goers.
Mhm,
But I think when you get there, you're surprised that the language is modern. And it does have, for example, the LGBTQ character that we just
mhm.
talked about. And it delves into so many different things that I think there really is something for everyone. Um, Careful bringing your kids. That there is a moment of self-harm in the show. Trigger
Okay,
warning.
good to know.
uh, yes. But as deep as it gets, I do think that there's the humor. There's the arrogance. There's the sarcasm. There's little quips and fun things that you'll notice throughout the show, especially looking at the background. Don't just watch the people that are talking. Obviously, watch the people that are talking, but watch the people reacting because I think we have
Mhm.
some great things going on in there too, and you'll learn a lot about relationships during those moments as well.
Sometimes those background actors, whether they're principals in the ensemble in that scene or ensemble in general, sometimes they honestly can give you the most pivotal story by watching them. Um,
Absolutely.
and ensemble actors are so underrated and so underappreciated. And
Hmm.
but they're there for a reason, and a lot of the times they can really help move that story along. Um, I did want to ask you, so you mentioned your character is the LGBTQ representation. Um,
Correct.
are there any other I don't know how to ask this, but like are there any other like minority characters represented in this show?
In this show, there are not. We are a fully white cast. I would love to see more minorities show out for auditions like this, and especially when a lot of people think that like, oh, it's a historical show. A lot of people back then were of light skin, stuff like that. Theater is a part of suspension of disbelief.
Yeah, and I think I'm pretty sure I mentioned this in my interview that I did with CPT for Christmas Story. Is a lot of people don't know
Mhm.
like some shows give you completely free reign over
Yeah,
what casting needs to be, whether it's in terms of gender identity, whether it's in terms of racial identity, um, anything like that. Whereas other shows do require you to have it cast a certain way because it's pivotal to the plot point. And I think this is a perfect example of, and granted, I don't know what's in the contract, but I think this is a good example of something that's, air quotes, historical show, but
Mhm.
it still has enough leeway that we could have a King Richard not played by a white guy or something like that.
Absolutely,
I
absolutely
think
agreed.
I think CPT did a really good job of that with Fiddler this time last year, where the whole family, the daughters, it was mixed. And we've hit that
Hmm.
point in the theatrical world and in our society where we're aware that the world is not just white, that there
Yeah.
are artists who deserve these opportunities too. Look at the talent that comes out for shows like these. I look at what they did with
Yeah.
The Color Purple up in Peoria. Holy crap.
Oh my gosh, I did see it.
It was
Gorgeous.
amazing. It was so
Yeah.
good. Um, but we love that there is that LGBTQ representation in this. So yes. Well, Sage, let me ask you this real fast while we're kind of on this taboo
Yeah.
subject, if you will. Why do you do theater?
It's the only thing I'm good at. No.
Vibes, though. I feel that in my soul.
Because I can't do math.
Same.
No, personally, it's where I feel most at home. I mean, I have literally been in a show this year since January, back to back to back. I think this is my ninth production, in some form of the art.
God, you
Uh,
sound like me.
yeah, I
Never taking
know,
a break.
but it really is. It's an addiction. I get an adrenaline rush every time I'm on stage. I love sinking my teeth into a new character and just learning why they do these things and what can I bring out in myself in a certain character. And it really is. I ask myself that question a lot because I've also been rejected so many times,
Hmm.
and the rejection hurts a lot, but I keep coming back. And why I do theater, I wish there was one answer. I wish there was an answer that stayed consistent, but really it changes from sometimes I'm bored to there's a role that I'm really interested in to I'm just doing it for the love of the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's great that you say that because I feel like theater people are kind of like I don't maybe pigeonholed into this
Hmm.
like stereotype of what we should be and why we're doing this. Right
Hmm.
now, for me, I believe theater is that educational element, whether it is actually the art of learning theater, whether it's
Hmm.
the art of what you can take away from theater to apply in your everyday life, even in your basic everyday life. I always tell
Yeah.
people if you ever want to learn time management, do a show. Um,
Oh, 100%.
um, but it's also that it just makes us feel good. Sometimes we like to, just play dress up,
Yeah.
and there doesn't have to be a reason behind any form of art. It,
And sometimes those shows exist where it's just a story to make you feel better.
yeah,
And
exactly.
sometimes those are the most important shows. They don't have to be so hard hitting or
Right.
political or just heart wrenching.
Yeah,
They could just make you laugh.
exactly. Like I just came off of James and the Giant Peach and then went right into Rocky Horror. Like, come on. Like those are fun. They're cute. They have
Yeah.
those cult followings. Yes, they have deeper meanings behind them that
Hmm.
I definitely think is pivotal in a character analysis, but sometimes people don't always want that. It's I just want to go on stage and be a sexy maid or something like
Exactly. I do that on my regular time too, so I don't have
Oh
that
yes.
urge too much. Of course.
That's great. All right, so let's get into all the fun information that everybody wants to know. When is the show performing?
So the show, the first Pay What You Can night is actually tomorrow, Thursday, the 7th of November, and then we are performing the next 3 weekends. So this weekend, the next weekend, and the following weekend, up until I believe that's November 20 something. November 23rd is our last day, where we have two shows that day, and then we also have two shows on the 16th.
Okay, perfect. So, are there any Sunday matinees or just the two show Saturday?
Just the two Saturday
Okay,
matinees.
perfect. So then the closing weekend would be that Saturday going into Thanksgiving.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. And what are the times for the shows?
They start at 7:30, and I believe the matinees are 2.
I believe you are correct
Yes.
on 2 p.m.
Okay. I hope so. Please check me on that.
Yes, I'm pretty sure they're 2 p.m.
Yes.
So excellent. And then Sage, one last thing for you. You want to give any shout outs to any of your designers, fellow cast members, anything like that?
Yes, I do, especially to the cast. It has been amazing working with them, but we have a big cast, or we have a lot of out of towners coming to the Heartland
Oh,
stage,
excellent.
which is actually fantastic. I love seeing people from other cities neighboring us. Our Eleanor is from Champaign. Carolyn has been absolutely fantastic to work with, as well as our Charlie is playing Henry and Kyle is playing Jeffrey. They're both coming from Peoria. We love to see the integration of
Yes.
Central Illinois. Gosh, I love meeting new people. It's actually one of my favorite things about this cast, where so many people were new. I got to work with people for the first time, and that's kind of rare around here. So I
Yeah,
love that.
we love new faces. Oh, that makes me so excited.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
yeah, it's always a good feeling when you see a cast list come out and you're like, I don't know them. I don't know
Yeah.
them. Oh, yay, someone came to the dark side.
Yep. Yep. No,
And
that
now
was
we're
super
never letting you
exciting.
go.
Exactly.
So, all right, Sage. Well, thank you so much for joining me. And I appreciate this conversation we had. We might have to get you on again just to discuss, all this uncomfortable stuff that nobody wants to talk about.
Of
Um,
course. Yeah, I'd
because
love to do
that's
that.
what theater is too. So, all right, everyone, go see The Lion in Winter at Heartland Theatre Company. Opening, well, this is airing on the 7th, so opening tonight, with their Pay What You Can preview. Go see Sage. I've known Sage for quite a few years. He's a pretty cool dude. I'm sure he'll do great. I'm sure you'll do great. And I
Thank
can't
you.
wait to see the show. So thanks so much, Sage. We'll talk to you later.
Thank you.